Hey everybody, my name is Chuck Black and welcome to my studio. Today we're doing a Northern Lights painting with some snow and some trees. There's going to be a lot of bright colors. It's going to be very cool. And of course we're using golden fluid acrylics on a 16 by 20 inch stretch canvas. So if you'd like to join us, welcome. And if you have questions about the process or any of the materials I use, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll be happy to answer. And finally, one last thing. Because I love all of you guys and all of my wonderful supporters, I give away a free art print every week. And all you have to do to sign up is click on the card that's popping up right now, follow the link, enter your name and email, and you'll be entered to win every week from me. And you'll also get some cool backstory about how I got started as an artist, what led to where I'm at now, and maybe a little bit about what inspires my art as well. So anyways, without further ado, let's get started on our painting. So the colors that we're going to be using today are carbon black, light blue permanent, primary cyan, titanium white, primary green. This one is actually interesting color. It's called brilliant yellow green. And you can use white, yellow, maybe a little bit of blue to kind of get a similar color, but this is a really bright washed out green. And then over here we have just a magenta. And the brush we're going to be using to start out with, this is a Lunar Mop is what it's called, and it's by Princeton. It's a 1/2 inch mop. I really like how it's thick and kind of rounded, good for blending, so it'll help us get started with this smooth sky. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab some white, not a lot. We're going to get some water on our brush, and I kind of press the water out on my cup over here, and we're going to grab this brilliant light green. We're going to get quite a bit on there, and it's got some water in it, not a lot, just to get it flowing. And we're going to start thinking about where our northern lights are going to be, and our sky is going to be somewhere in the middle, but let's just keep those northern lights and let's get them all the way down to about right here, and then we can cover some of that back up when we finish. So let's imagine a streak of it kind of coming through here. And I want to lay out kind of the thick part of these northern lights. The streaks that go into the sky we can add later, but it's easier. You can kind of get some weird looking northern lights if you try to do too much too soon. So just getting some thick colors in, and I'm not worried about the direction. You could even cross back and forth. And let's maybe do a second streak kind of below. Just get that green color. The more the better. We can cover it back up as we go. Let's have it go way up here. Grab a little more water, get some paint. Just worried about getting that color pretty saturated on the canvas. And let's have a little bit along the horizon down here. This is the easiest part. Looks like a lot of green. We'll tone it back a little bit, but can be any way you'd like to be. So imagine these streaks of northern lights. Maybe there's one closer one middle one. Maybe this is a little bit down on the horizon. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some light blue permanent and mix that in. I might get some white. And that color to me is looking a little bit muted. We want it to be a little more vibrant. So I'm going to wash my brush. Just get that paint off there. We'll still use that color though. I'm going to get some primary cyan. kind of get that on the brush, and I might grab a little bit of that color, just a little bit, and mix it in. Maybe half and half. And we want some blues to come up through here. Let's put some, and that'll be a good color, so let's get some more. We might add a little bit of this primary green. We want to keep it on the green side. Then I'm going to use my finger just to kind of blend some of these colors together. And if you think maybe it's looking a little bit sloppy, maybe not quite how you want it, don't worry about it. We can come back to it. Now for this blue, what I'm going to do, I might switch to our larger filbert brush just to get us a little bit of a head start. Speed things up just a little bit. Let's just get some color kind of on the edges of these lighter greens. You'll notice how I blend the top, and then I've got a harder line on the bottom. Circle motions, maybe some cross motion, X motions. It's a fairly dry, but the paint is still a little wet. I can keep it moving. So imagine those bottom edges kind of hard, and then the tops or the streaks are going to be coming off of that. Real simple. And they can be in whatever shape you would like. Okay, so I'm going to get a little more of this primary cyan on my palette. And then I'm going to take some light blue permanent and primary cyan. It's going to get a real vibrant, lighter blue. This is all about mixing colors. It's all about glazing, and so we're just going to keep adding different colors kind of in the same area. We're going to keep it going until we're happy with what we have, and all these colors will kind of play together towards the end. But this is just a little bit different color than what we have maybe down in this area. A little more vibrant, a little more blue, not quite as green. Okay, let's wash our brush. And I'm going to pick up some magenta and add that right into that color we just had. A little bit of white, get that a little brighter. A little more white, a little bit brighter. Let's just add that in kind of on the left side here. Keep out of that vibrant green, stay in the darker areas. And get rid of those streaks. Maybe we could okay. Let's take a little more of that color. Get it up in here too. Then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a lot more of this primary cyan. Just get it on there. Try to blend those colors together as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect because we are just getting started with these northern lights. The northern lights are going to be the focus of our painting. And I'm going to take a little black and add it into the primary cyan. Pick a little of that magenta up too. Let's get that darker up top. Let's just fill in this whole top area. We want that to blend nicely with these colors, so being a little careful. That's a little bit darker. That's okay. We want it to be real dark up top, so we'll get to that in a second. And these colors will be easier to blend once this first layer of paint dries. You'll notice it's very rough up top, and it always is going to be that way when you add a dark color over a light underneath, or maybe just an unpainted canvas in general. So we'll have to let that dry. We'll have to come back to it. But let's get it as dark as we can, cover that as best as you can. And that'll set us up to speed things up a little bit when we get to the next level, the next step. Okay. Let's let it dry, and then we'll come back to it. And then all we have to do down low, just to get started here, I'm going to have some trees in here, so I'm going to take some black. Might be a little blue mix in there as well. Just the idea of a tree line through here. This will help us see our sky how it is just a little bit better. Get rid of this white. Now all that white can kind of be distracting, and once we cover this up, then you can kind of see how bright these really are. Do I need to make them lighter or darker? So we're going to keep going. I'm going to take some white and some light blue permanent, just mix that together. I'm going to try to pick up a little bit of this blue primary cyan, get that in there as well. I'll add some green. So we're kind of pulling some of these colors from the sky, just making kind of a, not gray, but kind of muted down tone of the sky. And that'll be kind of the color of our snow. We can adjust it later, but I'll just get that in there. Just fill that in. And then we're going to let everything dry. Get a little more paint mixed up, kind of running out. just about it. We'll have to work on it some more, but that helps us out a lot. Okay, now let's let it dry, and then we'll come back to it in just a little bit here. Okay, so now this is all dry, and we're just going to continue with these northern lights and try to get some streaks going. So we're going to have the angle of our streaks kind of coming in from the left, angling inwards, and then as we get closer, we want those streaks to maybe be more straight up, and then maybe even just a little bit back the other way when we get over to this portion. So let's start right here to take some of that. Let's take some of that brilliant yellow-green and a little bit of the magenta. Let's get some water, and I'm going to switch to our round blender. Let's first cover up maybe a little bit of this white area right through here. Use a little bit of paint. And then I'm going to grab some more of that brilliant yellow-green. We're going to create some streaks. Just start with the green for right now. And then remember, kind of get that angle a little bit more up and down as we get over into here. Then I'm going to take a little bit of white, add that to it, so this is a little bit brighter, covers just a little bit better. Let's make this part just a little bit thicker than what we already have. And I'm going to add some light blue permanent to that. I'm going to do a little bit more into this one as well. Then what I'm going to do, wash my brush. I'm going to take some magenta and some white. We'll get a light pink. I might need to go get some more primary cyan. Let's pick up a little bit of that. Kind of more of a violet color. And we want that to be kind of bright. And we're going to continue with those streaks. They're going to change to kind of this violet pink color right through here. And I might put a little bit more through here. Now what I'm going to do is grab some white and primary cyan. Let's get some blue streaks through here. Remember when we changed the tone of our blue, we got a little more blue over here? Now that'll start to play together when we add these more of a bluish streaking going on over the top. Let's take a little more of that primary cyan and a little bit of that magenta, mix them together. This will be a darker blue. Let's get some darker color, kind of separate these two streaks out just a little bit. There we go. See that separation? How we can just do a little bit. It starts to make that a little more believable. I like that a little bit better. Just right through here. Let's add a little bit darker blue right along this area as well. Just underneath. As long as we have it, I'm going to keep going with that blue. To make some of these streaks a little bit longer. A little bit wider. Okay, now I'm going to wash my brush, and I'm going to switch. We've got some blues through here, and then we've got some of that lime green color. We want something in that transition area, so I'm going to take that permanent green and some white. This will be kind of an in-between. Richer green. We're going to try to blend some of those areas where we added those blue streaks and try to blend that into that brilliant yellow green. And we want to soften some of those edges up a little bit. You see how that all starts to work together? Really easy. Let's just keep that going a little more white, green and white. Let's do the same right through here. Soften up the bottom just a little bit. And fill in between that and the blue. And try to keep that direction of those streaks, try to keep it all the same. And you kind of have to circle your brush around, you kind of have to maneuver it some creative ways so we don't overlap into some of the other areas, but you can always add another layer over the top. So if you don't like something, you can keep coming back to it. Just let it dry. I'm going to take some white, add more white into that. So this is going to be a very light green, almost white. We're going to brighten some of these spots. Maybe right here, maybe right here. It doesn't have to be perfect. These spots can be just about anywhere. Anywhere where the streak kind of curves back is going to be a little bit brighter. Or some of the bases of these streaks always helps. Lighten a little bit in between. So the paint's a little bit wet still, so it allows us to blend this color right into it. So I'll kind of streak it across, and then I'll blend it up and down. Streak it across, blend it up and down. And that's all I'm going to do. And now this is pretty good, but we need to start darkening some of these areas to make these pop a little more. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to speed it up here because it's going to get a little bit tedious. But I'm going to continue doing exactly what we've been doing. And I'm getting some black and some primary cyan on my palette. We're going to take some of that primary cyan. We're going to mix some black. We're going to grab some magenta. It's going to be a real dark bluish, maybe a little violet. We're really going to start darkening some of these areas. We're going to try to fade it into the work we've done. And it's going to take a couple layers, so I'll do something like this. right through here to show you. Then what I'd do is I'd let this dry, and then I'd come back with a color in between, and I've covered this before in another video, and I'll try to match these colors. So this is an in-between blue. I'll try to mix that color and then kind of feather that area out. Then I'll move further down, and I'll try to mix this color and feather that area down. But the process is exactly the same. It doesn't change. And again, if you have questions about the part that I speed up, I'm more than happy to try and answer that, and we'll improve maybe with the next video. So please ask questions if you have any, but I'm going to speed it up and just keep working the sky just like this. There's nothing else that I'll be doing. Any areas I can smooth out or darken, just increase the contrast in general. I'm going to try to do that. And then we're ready, and the skies need to be finalized a little bit. We'll slow it down. Okay, so I'm at a point where the sky is getting pretty close to how I want it to be. There's a few areas, especially in the transitions between those lighter blues and darker blues. And what I'll do is add some glazes kind of through this area, maybe up through this area, and just soften a few spots, just so that that blend from light to dark is a little bit smoother. But right now it's to the point where it might be getting overworked, so I'm going to let it all dry and we'll come back to it in just a little bit here, but let's work more on the foreground. So I'm going to grab my filbert brush, this larger brush here. I'm going to get some primary cyan, some light blue permanent, some white, and I'm going to take just a little black, not much. Let's start thinking about where the snow might be reflecting some of this light. So you can see this is just a little bit brighter because we want it beneath this lighter area in the sky. So let's take some white and we'll grab a little green with that too. While that's still wet, let's just blend in a little white, a little blue. It's got some green. Start adding some highlights. And we'll grab some more darker blue. Put it down here, maybe a little more black. Just make sure everything is nice and covered. This paint will stay wet for just a little bit here, allow us to work it. And I kind of prefer when it gets tacky. So that's not always a bad thing as it starts to dry because it works differently. You can take advantage of that. So just making sure all of it's kind of covered. And I'm just going to look for maybe a little black. Get some darker blues, just kind of mix that through a couple spots. I'm going to pick up a little water with my brush, just get that flowing better. And we got a darker blue, and I'm just going to kind of scrub that into this area. Just try to feather that into these lighter areas. Same color, just a little bit richer blue. You see what that does? It instantly brings more life to the sky because as we have some highlights through here, then you start to believe that that might actually be glowing. So you've got to have some kind of highlight, whether it's water, whether it's snow, really creates a cool effect. And I'm grabbing a little more of that highlight color. Just trying to make these areas where they're blending together a little bit smoother. It's snow, so you can have some rough spots. Kind of use your imagination. It's not going to be a big deal. There's a few hard lines through here. That'll work to our advantage. So I'm not going to be too worried. Just going to keep getting it on there. Maybe just a real nice dark area, a little black and blue together here. A little bit of contrast can go a long ways. All right. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to just a round brush. This brush is a number 6 round. And we're going to want to work on some trees. And I'm going to speed it up because it's going to be the same thing, real simple. But I'm just going to create some tree tops, just kind of going from the upper part and then just kind of dragging it down. And I'm just going to be using black. And I might put in a couple larger trees, but real simple. However you like to depict trees, just keep it silhouetted, just keep it black. Just going to add some trees. And the way you do it will kind of add your own little touch to it. So don't be concerned about it, just get some trees on there. And I'll work all the way across, you'll see me fill it in. So then I'll slow it down and we'll kind of finish up the sky after that. Okay, so we have our trees laid in here. It was just straight black and that round brush. And I've got a clean new palette here so we can see this a little bit better. So all we've done is added Prussian blue to our mix. We're going to try to add some darker blues through here. So Prussian blue, and let's start with some of the darks. And I think I'm going to grab some of that Prussian blue and primary cyan. This is going to be a rich, dark blue. And I'm going to get some water on my fingers. And I'm going to look for some areas that could be darkened. So maybe right in between here. And then I'm going to just kind of blend that out. So this is like a glaze. It's very watered down. But it's just putting enough pigment on there to kind of work for me. Maybe a little right there. Little circle motions back and forth. Just get it nice and even. And then we're kind of increasing the contrast around those streaks, which kind of makes them pop out a little more, which is nice. And just the same thing right through here. Anywhere where this dark blue should be, it's a good idea to just kind of wash some more in there. Get it really uniform. That's going to make things appear a little more blended. We want this to be really soft. And we're going to do the same thing. You can see that transition I talked about right here. We need to bring that down so that this is nice and smooth through here. So let's just start with this blue. So it's nice that the Paint underneath is dry. Allows me just to blend that thin glaze over the top. Much easier. This is a little bit thicker, so we're going to try to darken that upper part of it. You can see how that makes it look much more realistic. That blend is just, there was too much light going on. It needed to be a little softer. So that's looking really good. And the last thing is this area through here I don't like. I'm gonna wash my fingers, wash my brushes. Just kind of wipe my fingers off here. Get that paint off. Get most of the water off the brush. There's still quite a bit of moisture on there. And we're going to grab some primary green, some white. I want a little more white than that. I'm going to use my finger again. Just kind of feather that out. A little bit right up there. Don't want too much. Just going to lighten some of these. Then let's take some more primary green, add some cyan in with that. Let's get a little bit of that darker green to fade into the blue a little bit more. Kind of going just to all those areas where that transition takes place between that darker green and blue. Just kind of getting that in-between color. That helps a little bit, but it's very rough on the tops of those, so I'll have to go back. I'll have to let that dry. And then I'll just have to fluff maybe some lighter blue. I could probably do a little bit with it right now. You can see that helps just a little bit, but it's not going to fix what we need completely. So I'll let that area dry and I'll have to come back to it. But for the most part, that's about all we're going to do as far as the sky. So I'm going to work a little more on the sky, and we've got one more final touch that'll really bring everything to life. And what I'm going to do with parts of these highlights, I want them to be a little brighter. So I'm going to take, this is a very light color. It's got a little bit of that brilliant yellow green, mostly white. And I want just a few spots to really pop, especially on the bottom edges. So I'll have to get a little more fine-tuned as I move along to finish these northern lights. But this is all I'll be doing. Just looking for an area I can get that lighter color in. Brush is starting to get kind of dry, so I'm putting more pressure. And that'll just feather that color right on there. Okay, so much of this is looking pretty good. There might be a couple spots that we could adjust, but we're really close. And what I want to do is add the final touch, which would be the stars. And so we're going to get the stars in here, and it's going to kind of take some distractions away that we might be kind of getting picky about, maybe a couple spots in here and here. So let's just get the stars in and see how it looks, and that'll be close to being finished. So what I've got here is a small piece of wood, and then I actually have a gum eraser, and that's holding on to a sewing needle. And we're going to dip it in the paint, and I've got some light blues mixed, not pure white, but lighter. I'm going to dip it in the paint, and I'm just going to press that onto the canvas, not too hard so we don't poke through, and that's going to start creating stars. And I like to be exact about my stars. I don't like to splatter a paintbrush because I like to create little constellations. Some areas I want different colored stars. In the pinks, I want my stars to be a little more pink. And in the blues, I want them to be a little more blue. But what you'll find here is as I do this, it's just going to create that second dimension, that third dimension. Just you're going to be able to start seeing through these northern lights, imagining there's a sky behind, and they all of a sudden turn three-dimensional. So I'm going to keep going just by doing that. And I'm going to go all across the sky. Just like this, adding stars. And then I'll slow it down, and I think we'll be just about done. Okay, so it's looking pretty good, and what we can do with some of these stars is we can take maybe some of this Prussian blue and a little bit of this primary cyan, get it real watered down. We can actually glaze some color over the top of these stars. Make sure it's a dark glaze. So that it blends with the sky pretty good. But we can just dull some of those down, work on smoothing some areas out, just a little bit. And then the last thing that I might do, I think we have a pretty much completed painting here. I like how everything's looking. We might want to put a couple larger trees. Might go ahead and stick a tree. Oh, maybe right here. And I'm going to lay it down with black. And then when I finish with the black, I'll add kind of some muted white, maybe some bluish white, right over the top to create like some snow on our tree. So So this tree's going to come up, and I'm going to probably switch to my round brush here with some black. And just get that tree silhouetted. Just kind of break up a couple things here. Create a nice effect. And I might put another tree right here. And the more I do, the more I find that now maybe I'd like another one, add a couple more details, and that can really set off a painting. When you just try something you're not sure about, do it anyways, like adding these bigger trees. You'll likely surprise yourself, and I might make this one just a little bit bigger. Maybe he'll come down in here. Just break up a couple things. There. And I'll add some white over the top, a few details on these trees. That's just going to set off a little foreground detail. And then I think we'll talk about it at the end, and that'll be a completed painting. So I'm going to speed it up, and then I think we'll slow it down here in just a few minutes. Well, I think we're going to call that a completed painting. You can see I added a little bit of snow to the tops of those trees. I just used the same color down in the ground and added over the top of those black trees. I smoothed out a few areas in the sky, but for the most part, I think I covered just about every process that I used. But if you had any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer them. And of course, if you love this video, please like and share. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And we got plenty more great ones to come. So until then, we'll see you next time.